Against the backdrop of an ever-evolving risk landscape, it's never been more important for underwriting and claims teams to be talking to one another. So we're back with episode 2 of the IUA's Feedback Loop. I'm Tom Hughes, Director of Underwriting at the IUA.
And I'm Joe Shaw, Director of Claims at the IUA.
I'm very pleased that we're joined today by some IUA marine experts. Howard, you're head of the Marine Technical Committee. Let us know what your day-to-day role entails.
That's right, and day-to-day I'm the head of Marine at Aviva.
And Amy, you're the current chair of our Joint Marine Claims Committee.
I am, and I'm acting group head of claims at the Fidelis partnership.
Okay, well, let's get started. So, Howard, we'll begin with that group that we mentioned, the Marine Technical Committee, obviously a very important group within the marine market. Can you let us know what that group's all about and where it fits into the overall marine market structure?
Yes, I think the first thing is there's no one single thing as marine insurance. Marine is kind of a family of businesses, all of which are supporting international trade. So you've got marine hull for the ships themselves. You've got cargo, which is not just cargo on ships. It's by land, by truck, by rail, by air. On top of that, you've got marine liability, whole separate subjects, which could be liability for shipyards or marinas or ports and terminal operators. And you have specie, which is effectively high value cargo, gold bars, diamonds, fine art, exhibitions, galleries, that kind of thing. All of these fall under the marine family, but they all are all very separate disciplines. What the Marine Technical Committee of the IUA does is bring representatives of all of those together, so that then you get from a local issue to a national issue, which is what the MTC as the IUA is, to an international issue at the top of the pyramid. And the IUA is our one of two national associations in the UK which belong to IUMI. IUMI is the International Union of Marine Insurance, and you can bet your bottom dollar whatever is an issue in London or Manchester is also an issue in Shanghai or Vancouver, New York, Frankfurt. So that's where it gets discussed on an international scale. And IUMI is the body that has the relationships with international organisations like the EU, like the United Nations, through the IMO, the International Maritime Organisation. They can deal with, or can have input into important things like international conventions, safety of life at sea, pollution, issues like that, which need to be dealt with internationally. And a lot of IUA MTC members sit on IUMI committees. As London Market, we want to be involved internationally.
So on the claims side, how does that align with the committee structure that we've got at the moment?
So on the claims side, you'll be pleased to know there's just one acronym, so that's JMCC, which is the Joint Marine Claims Committee. The Joint Marine Claims Committee naturally complements all of the underwriting committees, and in particular the technical committee. So we are one committee, we are a joint IUA and LMA committee. We are made up of, in that sense, company and syndicate practitioners, but from a broad range of marine classes, so hull, cargo, liability in particular, and we've recently have a subcommittee, the Joint Specie Claims Committee, which feeds into the JMCC. Much like Howard has touched on, the Joint Marine Claims Committee has a number of representatives that attend the underwriting committees, and their job really is to make sure that we are interacting with each other and there's a good level of engagement. If there are issues that we feel need to be brought to the underwriting committees, then our representatives will do that. But the main purpose of the Joint Marine Claims Committee is, one, to provide a learning platform for practitioners and make sure that we are spearheading education. Another one is to make sure that if there are key issues in the market that need addressing at perhaps a higher level, then those are brought to the JMCC and disseminated wider. And the other one really is just to talk about very high level market trends and make sure that from a claims perspective we are proactive rather than reactive and putting our best foot forward.
So Howard, tell us from your perspective why it's important that you're in touch with claims experts on a day-to-day basis, whether in your own company or through the group structures that we talked about.
Both of those are massively important, I think, for any organisation. At the end of the day, claims is our shop window for if you're an underwriter, if you're an insurance company, if you're a syndicate. I mean, it used to be a piece of paper. You'd issue a piece of paper. It's probably an electronic document now. But essentially, what we do is we issue a piece of paper and we make a promise. And it's up to our claims teams to make good on that promise, as is appropriate within the contract. I think for that to happen effectively, you have to have almost day-to-day liaison, and that's not the one side influencing the other. It's just understanding what each other is doing. The other part to it is underwriters can only underwrite dynamically, if I can put it that way, if they have a first-hand experience in their claims team as to how trends are changing very, very quickly sometimes. So just one example is that there has been, in the last 12 months, in every advanced economy in the world, significant increase in strategic organized theft. Not just theft of cargo, full stop, but strategic organized theft. And I think it's through discussing the real instances that the claims teams are doing day to day that, one, you can talk about that, you can re-underwrite, you can reprice, but also from an MTC or a joint committee point of view, if you need to look at different wordings, different market mechanisms, such as we've had recently for invoking war, cancellation and rewrites, that's where those committees come in, but the need for it comes from what our claims folk are telling us.
Yeah, and I suspect a lot of that you'll agree with, and we have been discussing in our group, but I don't know if there's anything you want to add in terms of that underwriting and claims interaction.
No, absolutely. I think, as Howard's touched on, the interaction between claims and underwriting is critical. Ultimately, it's the underwriters that set out the intent of the product, but it's really up to the claims team to test how that product performs and to feedback any trends or any suggestions on policy wording, and just to make sure that everything's joined up as a product to our clients.
It's exactly what we try to replicate across our own IUA committee structure with our wordings committee, the IUA's clauses committee, our headline group. And we have a very good engagement with the heads of claims group, claims strategy committee, and that's our version of the feedback loop in practice.
And I think that's something the market does really well. We have lots of committees. I think it's fair to say the market loves a committee, but those committees interact with each other very, very effectively. And I think that's very positive.
So we talked a little bit about education, and I think it's been widely talked about in the market that there is a skills gap and some problems that we might need to address. What's your take on that in terms of the marine market?
I would probably say, certainly from a claims perspective, one of the emerging challenges is the number of senior practitioners reaching retirement. That, aligned with a hybrid way of working that we've adopted more recently, does create challenges with learning and development and also attracting talent into the market. The JMCC has been working very hard with our Marine Under 35 reps and with the Marine Under 35 group and the IUA to provide some, I think, more engaging learning platforms. So we're of an age now where you can find facts on anything online instantaneously. So people don't really want to be talked at in terms of factual information unless it's something they don't already know or cannot already find out pretty quickly. So I found that the claims boot camps have been really, really helpful, where you're actually listening to experts, to practitioners, talk about hands-on experience, and this is stuff you can't learn from a book. And the feedback from the junior practitioners who have attended these boot camps has been really, really positive in that respect. So I think on that note, the only thing I would say is if there are senior practitioners in the market with knowledge, please offload it onto the wider group, because it really is beneficial for the future of our market.
Yeah, it's fair to say we're always open to people being involved in those kind of events, and of course rely on people like you guys a great deal. If you haven't come across IUA events, I would be surprised, but it's not impossible. But please go to the IUA website, because there's a huge amount of information on there about what we're doing, or the IUA's LinkedIn, or just get in touch with Joe and I. We'll ask you to grab the crystal ball now, as we often like to do, and look ahead. But if we sat back in these chairs in a year's time and said to you, what do you think will be the biggest issues that we're talking about as a market, or perhaps how might we have moved forward, where would you like to see us?
Wow, that's a question. Two ways of answering that. One is I've been in the market for a few years now, and even what were we talking about 20 years ago? We were talking about Iranian sanctions. We were talking about piracy. Both of those still exist. We were talking about civil unrest in different parts of the world. The label may have changed. The issue is the same. There are new things, yes. You talked about cyber and claims with some electronic element to the causation or the motivation. That is certainly new. That will continue to develop. I have no doubt that we'll still be talking about sanctions, civil war, or all of those things at some point, particularly given geopolitics. Rest with some comfort that there will be plenty of things to discuss.
Amy, any predictions from your perspective?
I mean, as a claims person, we're quite reactive in that sense. But I agree with Howard. I do think that many of the topics that we discussed 10, 20 years ago are still very much topics of interest now. And I do think technology is going to play a very big part in the future of insurance. We need to make sure we're evolving as rapidly as it is.
Perfect. And it's fair to say that one of the things on Joe and my wish list will be, and you probably picked it up already, but more and more practitioners involved in the groups and involved in what we're doing. So for senior practitioners, we are only as strong as our groups and the thought leaders that are on those groups. So please do reach out and get involved. And hopefully through this content and some of the other things that we're doing, we can bring more and more newer practitioners in the market into the IUA community. So thank you both so much for your time,
Thank you.
sharing your wisdom. And we'll be bringing everyone another episode of the Feedback Loop over the next couple of months.